Good afternoon to everyone on the Betrayal Diaries channel. I'm going to tell you about the day my stepfather gave me a toy and asked me to use it in front of him. My stepfather owned a computer store, and in the back, with restricted access, there was an adult toy store with lots of different products. Ever since I was young, when I went to my stepfather's store, after work and before the store closed, he didn't forbid me to look at all that variety of products. I loved looking at them because there were so many different sizes, colors, and textures. He was very upset when he found out that my mother had been cheating on him with another shopkeeper who worked in the same building as him. I stayed by my stepfather's side by choice. I was always incredibly attached to him. We had an intense, almost visceral relationship that I could never quite understand. But nobody needs to understand everything, do they? Things happened so naturally that somehow my presence there became almost indispensable to him. Over time, he moved the computer store to another mall. Not that it was a stroke of luck, but he knew what he was doing. Deep down, he was already preparing for something much bigger. The store was just the facade, the transition. Inside the house, he set up a warehouse, a veritable den of adult products. The change wasn't immediate, but when I saw the transformation of the environment, a shiver ran down my spine. He started selling products exclusively online. Ever further away from the physical store, he delegated daily tasks to his employees while he stayed at home. I wasn't sure what he was planning, but I couldn't deny that there was something in me that felt increasingly curious. Visits to the warehouse became more frequent, almost like an unexpected routine. I watched him packing the orders, labeling the boxes with precision. His eyes were fixed on the labels with an almost obsessive concentration, while his hands worked relentlessly. I couldn't just stand by, so I started to ask. "What's that for?" I asked, with a naivety that now seems almost ridiculous. But he didn't hesitate to explain. The details were revealed without beating around the bush, and, in a way, neither he nor I felt uncomfortable about it. We were intimate enough to talk about it calmly. He talked about his toys, fantasies, and accessories with a natural ease. What was worse, or better, was that I couldn't look away. The way he talked about those products, the confidence in every word, gave me the feeling that I was being initiated into something secret, something forbidden. I knew what he was doing. He wasn't just selling products. He was selling experiences and desires, and somehow, it all seemed to resonate within me. I stood there, on the line between fascination and apprehension, watching his every move, letting myself be enveloped by an unexpected energy. Each sealed box, each label attached, seemed like a ritual, and I, as a captive spectator, found myself more and more caught up in the plot, as if I was beginning to understand a side of him that no one else saw. "Who is this product for? Have you used this before?" He smiled with an air of knowing that I was testing the limits, not just his, but mine too, and he didn't hesitate to tell me. I knew he didn't have to tell me everything, but somehow the answers he gave me seemed to reveal more about him than about the products. I was no longer an observer. I was becoming part of that world of sensations, of desires. I wanted to know more. Not that I was capable of understanding everything, but the curiosity was there, invading my mind and, over time, my body. It was a dangerous game, a blurred line between what I knew and what I wanted to know. What made me most uneasy was not what I knew, but what he didn't tell me, what he was hiding. Every day, the warehouse became more intimidating. It was almost as if he had set up a private stage for his secret sales, and I unwittingly found myself at the center of it all. A spectator who couldn't look away, who felt a mixture of excitement and confusion, but who didn't have the courage to leave. Something in me, perhaps a part of me that I still didn't fully know, was feeding off it. I don't know exactly how far this story could go. I just know that, little by little, my presence at his side became more and more indispensable. What began as a curiosity turned into something more complex, something that I may never fully understand, but that, on some level, I knew was part of the plot. A plot that, however confusing, I could no longer escape. It was with him that I learned how to use some in theory. One day, with a small toy in his hand, looking at the details, my stepfather turned to me and asked if I would like it as a present. "For me, it's normal if you want to use it," he said. As he knew that I had recently ended a relationship, I realized that he must also have imagined that I was no longer pure at my age. I thanked him and put it in my handbag. I began to relieve myself constantly using that device. Everything took a turn in our lives when my father received an order for a strange Chinese product, a life-size toy woman, almost perfect, with voluminous headlights, and everything a turbaned woman has. The package was returned to our address because the buyer had moved. 3 months later, after waiting for a complaint, my father decided to open the package, and using a portable pump that came as an accessory, he filled the doll and left it on his desk. I went in, and, seeing the thing, which really did look like a woman, he explained what had happened to me, saying that he didn't know what he was going to do with it, as it would be very difficult for someone else to make that kind of order, because it was so expensive. I thought it was funny to see that doll like that. Well, keep it for yourself. I thought about it, daughter, but I still prefer a real woman. I felt like asking him if he was seeing any real women, but I kept quiet, as he didn't seem to have anyone outside the house. That's when it hit me to continue playing with him. I'd like to see a man with a rubber woman. What are you thinking, you crazy girl? Seeing your father with that thing? Can you imagine? It would be interesting, wouldn't it? When I said that, he walked over to the shelf and picked up a toy. It would also be interesting to see you with this one. If you had the courage, I'd have the courage to do it with the doll in front of you. We laughed a lot, but then we each went our separate ways. I spent the whole night imagining 1,000 things about it. I had to wear that blue I told you about, because my adrenaline was running high. The next day, I got home from university, and when I didn't see my father at home, I thought he must be at the computer store. When I entered the warehouse, I saw that he had put the toy he had shown me in the center of the table, and the rubber woman was still lying on a small sofa. When something crossed my mind, I started to play with that product, and I was already delirious when my stepfather suddenly walked in. I quickly got up from the table, scared out of my wits, and he came over to hug me. "Go on. Let me watch you do it some more." Smiling, he went on to say that if I did it in front of him, he'd do it with the doll too. I knew that none of this was normal between my stepfather and me, but the urge and desire made me take courage. I climbed back onto the table and repeated the gesture. With my heart racing and almost bursting out of my mouth, I gave my stepfather permission to watch. "Do you like watching?" "Very much." It was unimaginable, but my stepfather put the doll on the arm of the sofa, and without stopping to look at me, he started, but he started more slowly. Suddenly, just like that, he came closer, and my heart raced in my chest, the sound of my own blood pulsing in my ears, drowning out any other sound around us. We were inches apart. Time seemed to have slowed down, as if the universe had stopped breathing just to watch. He didn't hesitate, and his lips touched mine in a way that seemed like someone who had waited too long. And when the kiss finally happened, there was no turning back. The world around us disappeared. The ground crumbled beneath our feet. The next thing I knew, we were on the floor, entwined in a chaotic and wild dance of emotions. I could feel his warmth, the firmness of his arms enveloping me. The kiss intensified. It was more than desire. It was something primal, visceral. Our feelings were intertwined, confused. All I could think about was him, and all he could think about was me. When we finally finished relieving ourselves, we separated, and silence fell between us. Nothing needed to be said, because everything was clear. He gave me a soft kiss, almost like a whisper, and the words stuck in our throats, with no room for comment or questioning. The energy was in the air, still electric, still pulsating. He stood up, his gaze passing over me with an intensity that made me shudder, before leaving without a word. I watched him leave, the sound of the door closing softly, and felt an instant emptiness, as if I had left part of myself behind with him. I headed for the bathroom, trying to process what had just happened, but my body was still shaking with the memory of his touch, his kiss, the warmth he had left in me. I spent a few minutes in there, trying to calm down, but the feeling of euphoria wouldn't go away. When I returned, the room was silent. The place seemed empty, but something told me that he wasn't far away. I went into the living room and noticed that he was in the storeroom. The door was ajar, and when I peeked in, I saw his figure in the distance. He was sitting at his desk, immersed in papers, but his posture seemed different, as if he were far away, somewhere that wasn't there. It was the same man, but somehow something had changed between us. "Hi, my love. "Come here and give me a kiss." My voice was full of complicity, of a desire that could no longer be hidden. He looked up quickly, his eyes meeting mine with an intensity that almost paralyzed me. Wordlessly, he moved closer and kissed me, but now the kiss was more than just an impulse. It was an affirmation, a reaffirmation of what we were building, something that seemed much deeper than anything we had ever experienced before. "I love you very much, see?" His voice was softer, but charged with a feeling that spread through my body like a warm wave. I knew he felt the same way. I didn't need any more words. His touch, the way his hands held my face, as if he wanted me to stay there forever, was more than enough. And it was there, in that little storage room in our house, among piles of papers and disorganized boxes, that everything changed. It was no longer just a friendship, no longer just an exchange of shy glances and low laughs. Now we were something more, something stronger, more real. It was as if, at that moment, the universe had conspired for our souls to meet, for our lives to become inseparably intertwined. After that kiss, nothing was ever the same. The distance between us seemed to have dissipated, as if the world around us had finally fallen into place, making sense of something much bigger. We walked to the bedroom, without haste, without words. Glances were enough. All I wanted was to be close to him, to feel his presence, his energy. When the door closed behind us, the last barrier between us disappeared, and so time dragged on into the night, but the feeling of being with him, of having crossed that line, wouldn't leave me. When the soft light from the bedroom illuminated his face, I saw a completely different man, more confident, more sure of himself, and at the same time, more vulnerable. He was wonderful in every way. His gestures, his words, everything about him was worthy of affection, respect, and a happiness that perhaps he hadn't received before. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, a storm of unbridled emotions. I couldn't stop thinking about what my mother had done to my stepfather. How could someone I loved and respected treat such a good man with such cruelty? What she did not only broke his spirit, but destroyed something inside me. He didn't deserve to suffer like that. He didn't deserve that pain. I knew with the certainty of someone who knows the truth inside their own soul that he deserved something much more. He deserved the happiness, the love, the respect that she heartlessly denied him. And there, in the midst of all that emotional confusion, something awoke in me, something primal and fierce. I was there by his side, and I wasn't going to let it go unnoticed. I wasn't going to let him be destroyed like that. At that moment, it wasn't just about revenge. It wasn't just about retribution. It was something deeper, something that burned inside me with the intensity of an unstoppable flame. I was willing to do whatever it took to show him that not everyone was the same, that not everyone bowed to the cruelty of life or the actions of an unscrupulous person. He didn't deserve to be cast aside from happiness. He didn't deserve to be treated as a mere detail in the hands of someone who didn't see him for who he really was. I saw him, I saw his soul, his heart, his goodness, and he deserved, at the very least, someone who treated him with the same intensity, with the same passion that he gave of himself. He deserved to be treated like the incredible man he was, and I would do anything to make that happen, for him to be happy, for him to know that he still had the chance to find real love, to be valued, and more than that, he would find it with me. I would become the reason he could trust again, the reason he could believe in something better. He would no longer be the broken, disillusioned man that life had tried to destroy. No, he would be the man I would see every day with admiration, with respect, and with a passion that only grew as the days went by. Our story began that night, months ago. That was the moment when everything changed, and although it was an impulse, something irrepressible, an unexpected reaction to a unique situation, it turned into something much deeper. It didn't take long for our connection to make sense. It was as if we were already like that, as if our story had begun long before the two of us met. What began as an uncontrollable desire, an attraction that couldn't be denied, evolved into something stronger, truer, more overwhelming. I knew, with every fiber of my being, that what the two of us shared was something rare, something that didn't happen every day. It was a force so great, so unique, that nothing could erase it. And more than that, I knew that what we felt had no return. It was too deep to ignore. Today, Months later, we're still together. Not quietly, not easily, but intensely and truly. What began as an explosive flame hasn't gone out. It hasn't been extinguished. On the contrary, it has strengthened, become even more solid, more real. And now, as I look at it, I know that we made the right choice. Every word exchanged, every gesture, every touch, everything has led us here, to this point where we are stronger than ever. I know that the future is unpredictable, but I'm no longer afraid, because I know that alongside him, I will fight until my last breath to ensure that he knows how special he is, how much he deserves to be loved, how much he deserves to be happy, and that, no matter how hard life has tried to tear us apart or make us fall, we'll get back up, together, stronger, more in love, and ready to continue this story that only the two of us can write. It's not over yet. Click on the cards and continue with us.